All right, the time is now 5:30, so I'm going to call to order the Committee of the Whole for December 15th, 2025. Clerk Boak, could you please do the roll?
Councilmember Cost?
Here.
Councilmember Brown?
Present.
Councilmember Spatafor? Councilmember Carter?
Here.
Councilmember Polyvanoglu?
Present.
Councilmember Garza?
Here.
Councilmember Hussein?
Here.
Councilmember Jackson? 8 members present.
Okay, thank you. Next, we are on to the minutes. Vice President Carter.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the December 8th minutes as presented.
Okay, we have a proper motion in place. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Next, we're on to public comment on agenda items. If anyone from the public wishes to speak, now is your opportunity to come up to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes, and can you please state your name for the record?
Good evening, Council. My name is James Lennon. I am here tonight on behalf of the Old Town Commercial Association and the many businesses and property owners who make up Old Town, which is one of Lansing's most vibrant districts. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of the proposed PSD expansion tonight. Old Town's success is the result of intentional collaboration between the city, local businesses, and community partners. In the last 30 years, the PSD has been a critical tool in the success, which has allowed us to reinvest directly into marketing, placemaking, maintenance, safety coordination, and events that bring thousands of visitors into Lansing each year. Old Town has grown beyond the original PSD boundaries set over 30 years ago, and the current lines now no longer reflect how the district functions today. Some businesses outside the existing boundary actively contribute to and or benefit from Old Town's identity, foot traffic, and events, yet they are unable to fully participate in the PSD. This expansion simply aligns the district boundaries with present-day reality. Expanding the PSD creates fairness and shared investment. It brings more businesses to the table, strengthens collective resources, and ensures that those benefiting from the district also have a voice and a stake in its continued success. Importantly, this expansion is supported not only by small businesses, but also by key development partners who have invested heavily in Old Town's future, including Turner North, Paul Genelosi, and Michigan Community Capital. It is the goal of the OTCA, if approved, to develop an advisory board, including business and property owners, that will have a role in directing where this new revenue is ultimately utilized. Just as important, this expansion benefits the city as a whole. Old Town events and businesses generate sales tax revenue, support local jobs, and attract visitors who then spend money throughout Lansing. For example, this last year's Old Town Krampusnacht drew in over 13,000 individuals to Lansing, all the way from California. Lastly, the PSD is not a new or untested approach. It's a proven economic development tool being thoughtfully extended to match organic growth of Old Town Lansing. The OTCA has demonstrated responsible stewardship of PSD funds through transparency, measurable impact, and strong community support for close to 30 years. On behalf of the Old Town Commercial Association and the many businesses and property owners who have voiced their support already, I respectfully ask for your approval of the PSD expansion that is set before you this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Michael Fisher. I'm here to provide my own personal perspective on the PSD expansion. As a fairly long-term resident of the Old Town District area, a property owner and business owner in that area since 2006. I've noticed a lot of improvements from that specifically are related to the PSD, not only from the funds that might be provided, but what those funds foster. The PSD has acted as a seed for a lot of the things that have happened in the Old Town District, or what what it is today in comparison to, say, other areas of the city that might not be quite as vibrant. I was involved and had my property in its early years of what it is today, not what it was years back. And so I've seen the growth personally. And I've also been involved in it, not only as a business owner in the area and property owner, but a volunteer. And the nice thing about the organization that is in the area, the Old Town Commercial Association, is predominantly low-cost and volunteer. But that has been something that has allowed that area to provide a lot more for the dollars that are provided through the PSD than what the PSD dollars would buy on their own. As I said, it acts as a seed in that area. The management from the volunteers and the community engagement that is done in that area helps utilize those funds far beyond a dollar for dollar type kind of mindset. And so the expansion of that would now not only allow more funds, but an expansion of those funds and well management of those funds. And that's where it will not only benefit the individuals within the area, but the city as a whole, and attracting not only people coming in for festivals and things of that nature, but more businesses wanting to be in the area to benefit from that. So that's just my perspective. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Eric Hanna, and I'm here to speak in support of the Principal Shopping District. I'll be brief tonight, but just to make a point, we have 195 parcels in the current highly compact district that was formed 30 years ago. Just those 195 parcels created 674,000 visitors last year. There are 16 restaurants, 38 retail stores, 60 first-floor storefronts, and over 800 people employed in that district. It did not look like that 30 years ago. So this process and this system objectively works, and its resources responsibly managed, and I would encourage you to support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Jamie Schreiner. I am an Old Town commercial property owner, resident, and have been a volunteer for more than 25 years in the Old Town District. I am here to speak also in support of the PSD expansion. My colleagues have very eloquently stated many reasons for it. Just to reiterate what Old Town was 30 years ago versus what Old Town is today, we had a 90% vacancy rate in 1996. Today, that is a 90% occupancy rate. And this has been with the help and assistance of the PSD. I highly encourage you to approve it and allow us to continue to expand our work and further the boundaries of Old Town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Summer Schreiner. I am a property owner and a business owner in Old Town for about 20 years now, and also a volunteer, really involved in the community. But I found out a couple of years ago that my property, we refer to my property as Old Town, that was outside of the current boundaries, and it just seems very, very wild that in a neighborhood that's grown so much, we never quite got our boundaries to where they should be. So many things that are referred to as Old Town and have been for many, many years, we're not having that PSD assessment. And watching our commercial association be all that it's accomplished in a very hand-to-mouth way in all of these years, knowing that it could have the funds that are appropriate to the neighborhood and to spend in the neighborhood and use to keep on improving the neighborhood, I will be happy to pay that assessment, and I know most of my neighbors feel the same way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. Jason Kilday with Gillespie Group, Vice President of Development. I spoke at the last City Council meeting, not in our opposition or support of the Old Town PSD expansion boundary, just to question why are we moving it through so fast, and we need a little bit more time. So I'm respectfully asking here on behalf of the Gillespie Group and several other commercial property owners I've talked to table this. In the last week, I've talked to 8 commercial property owners, substantial parcel sizes. Not one of them knew about this. 4 of them do not live in the area anymore, but they still own property here. So they were shocked to learn that this was going through, and they had no notification. I've explained that the proper notification was given through the newspaper. They understand all that, but many of them don't even understand the impacts to their property right now. So nobody's saying we don't support Old Town. We think Old Town's done a marvelous, rebirth over the last 30 years. We have another property in the core of Old Town. We understand there's benefits that property gets. We are having a hard time at this point in time, without further conversation with the Old Town Commercial Association and you council members, to understand what is the benefit we're getting by this expanded boundary with our properties that are now getting inserted to it. So again, we're not here to speak against it or for it. We're simply asking for more time and to table this vote until after the new year, when we can have meaningful conversations with all those involved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have any further public comment? Okay, seeing no takers, we are going to move on to item 5, discussion action. The first item up is going to be a resolution for the reappointment of Dr. Thomas Woods as an at-large member of the HRCS Advisory Board for a term to expire June 30th, 2029. This is a reappointment. He's not here. Do we have any discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, I would take a motion from Vice President Carter.
Yes, I will make a motion for the resolution of the reappointment of Dr. Thomas Woods as an at-large member of the Human Relations and Community Service Advisory Board for a term to expire June 30th of 2029.
Okay, we have a proper motion in place. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Passes unanimously. Next, we are on to item C, a resolution for Social District, RBM Properties LLC, DBA Graywall Hall at 224 South Washington Square. Is there any discussion on this agenda item? Oh, and Kathleen is here in case we have any questions. Okay, Councilmember.
Yeah, I guess I got a couple questions, and it's not necessarily, I think, specifically to Graywall. I think it's just process in general. So many of the things that come before us, have some measure of departmental review, and then a lot of times there's staff recommendation. Does this go through any departmental review before it comes to us? And I think of police, I think of code enforcement, I think of because I'm always curious when they come forward. Have we had issues? Have we had an increase of calls with regards to things like public safety? We just don't get any information when we have these types of requests.
Understood. To my knowledge, at this point, it doesn't go under any departmental review at a city level, but once council approves a business or an entity being included in the social district, whether it's downtown, Old Town, or Rio Town, that then has to go before the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, and they have to fill out an application and have that review. In terms of some of your other questions, if there's been issues, to my knowledge, and the discussions I've had with our neighbors in Old Town and Rio Town, no businesses have experienced issues. LPD hasn't reported any issues to us. We do check in from time to time, but at this point, there hasn't been any issues that we're aware of.
All right, and I appreciate that. No, and again, not specific to Graywall. I think moving forward, I think they they opened back in, I think it was October of 2023, and in my opinion, have been a fantastic addition to that part of downtown. I think moving forward, I think they're going to continue to be kind of an anchor business for nightlife and foot traffic and all those things that hopefully will keep downtown alive after 5. But was just curious in terms of process. Thank you.
And just for context too, if I might add, Graywell Hall is back up before council this evening because originally as their resolution was submitted, their legal name as defined by Laura was not correct. So we wanted to make sure that it was correct so they could move forward with the proper process with NLCC.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions? Okay, seeing none, well, thank you for coming down, and then Vice President Carter.
Yes, I will make a motion for the resolution of the social district, RBM Properties LLC, or LCC, DBA Graywall Hall, 224 South Washington Square.
Okay, proper motion in place. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. Just quickly, I want to point out, first, I'm probably going to vote yes for it, but social districts is basically allowing people to carry their alcohol outside, you know, from place to place, which otherwise is a crime, which otherwise would have the police stop a person, be able to arrest them, be able to search them completely, and ultimately, you know, impede on that person's daily life. So by ordinance, we're saying that, you know, open containers is okay in this situation downtown where everybody likes to chill, but, you know, maybe people in the park or people walking on some other street or people that don't really have a house or hanging out outside or on the sidewalk is not okay. And I know we're not on this yet, but I also would tie that to the noise ordinance because a lot of these places that allow for the social district also has a cabaret license and has music playing and there's also residents nearby, especially in some of those downtown apartments. So we're kind of criminalizing or decriminalizing certain things when it's not applied fairly. And I think that and I'm going to get to the noise ordinance later, but it's just that my point is that is there harm in an open container or is there not harm? Is there harm in music being played loudly where it goes through the walls and disturbs the next apartment over, or is it not? Is the police going to come and, you know, enforce the, for example, open container at a function outside or enforce the noise ordinance at a multi-unit apartment or not? Is there harm or not? So there's just a distinction that we're playing with that is a little bit gray, and I just think it's worth noting.
Thank you. Do we have any further comment? Councilmember Brown.
Thank you. Thank you for DLI coming quickly about the name. I just point of, I guess, I don't know, clarification. Is this a clerical error where it says RBM Properties LCC versus LLC, Limited Liability Company? And I know Vice President Carter was speaking. Well, I don't know if. Yeah, I think that if we could verify that before we approve this resolution, it may be a clerical.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Oh. It's LLC. So then we need to, amend it.
Yeah, there's already a motion on the floor, so she'll probably want to, she can do two things. She can
I can amend it.
withdraw her motion and then make a new motion to approve the amended resolution.
Yep.
Okay,
Nope, I will withdraw the resolution, or the motion for the previous stated LCC, DBA Graywall Hall, and then make a motion for the resolution to carry forward the Social District RBM Properties LLC, DBA Graywall Hall, 224 South Washington Square.
all right, so with that amended resolution, do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Passes unanimously. All right, next we are on to item D, which is a resolution grant acceptance of the COPS microgrant, Safer Lansing, from the Department of Justice, Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. We have Chief Backus here. If you could come down and just briefly speak on this for us, we'd very much appreciate it. And if you could make sure your green light is on, that would be fantastic. We can.
Okay. Good evening, Council President. Thank you for letting me address this. This is a 2-year grant from the COPS Office, Community Policing. This grant will fund primarily May to October efforts for the Lansing Police Department. We've termed this Safer Lansing. So the goal of this is to put additional officers on our streets in those busy times, specifically areas where we know that there are either crime patterns or we expect large crowds. And the goal would be to add 3 to 4 officers on weekdays and weekends through overtime funding that's provided by this grant. This is a 2-year grant. There's no match involved. And again, this would be primarily through May and October of both 2026 and 2027.
Okay. Do we have any questions for the chief? Councilmember Hussein.
So is this kind of like a replication of what we did for Safe Summer Initiative 2025? Is that, or no?
It is. It's a continuation. So this is a different grant to fund the same efforts.
Right, okay. And I guess, so question is, and I get what the grant covers, are we looking at like targeting certain crimes? Are we looking for lower response times? What are the outcomes we're looking for primarily?
The goal is specifically on Fridays and Saturdays, we have a higher call volume. So to make sure that we have the appropriate amount of staffing with the current staff levels, we can fill some of the need through overtime. But there's also the idea that during those same months, we have a lot of community engagement events. So on the weekends, we'll see more festivals, more community picnics. We want to make sure we're also getting officers to those as well. So really, the goal is to put more officers out through these overtime efforts so that we have more engagement. There is the enforcement side of it, and we are tracking that we have a weekly crime meeting where we're looking for trends, not only in locations, but specific crimes, like you mentioned, to make sure we're addressing that.
Okay, I've got Vice President Carter.
Thank you, Chief Backus, for being here. And you mentioned the high-impact crowds, crime, or whatnot. Will it also assist with those with high volume of speed areas for those Friday and Saturday additional hours for those officers? Because we have residents who talk a lot about the speed impact in some of those areas. Would this also touch point on that area as well for speed versus just crime and high crowd volume?
That was part of our program last summer, and we plan on continuing that in the next 2 summers with this grant.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I've got Councilmember Garza.
All right, thank you, President Cost. Thank you, Chief Backus, for being here this evening. I guess my only question is with the $157,500 that's dedicated to enforcement engagement for the next 2 years, started this October, do you anticipate going over that amount of money? And if so, will the program stop at that point?
We may go over that amount. So this is just supplementing what we're already doing. So we'll be able to add additional dates and additional number of officers through using this grant. It is possible that we'll go over this amount. We will try to divide this by 2 years so that we're fiscally responsible. So, I mean, it's the idea that we're adding additional duties to what we normally would plan to do. So we're adding additional officers, we're adding additional patrols. So we are not going to go over this grant amount.
Okay.
We'll use our overtime funding to cover the other efforts.
Great. Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right, I've got Councilmember Pelivanoglou, followed by Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, President Cost, and thank you for being here, Chief Backus. I just have one question, and I think I know the answer, but I just want to make it clear that the title of this grant can be just a bit misleading when we see community-oriented policing services. I just want to make sure that we understand that as a community that this doesn't mean that we have enough officers to assign to a specific neighborhood to be their community police officer, that this is going to more replicate what we saw last summer with additional community engagement, but not necessarily a permanent assignment of one specific officer to, those particular neighborhoods.
That is correct. This will not fund a specific officer to a specific place on a regular occurrence. This is funding that helps us be more fluid and address those crime patterns that we don't necessarily predict, but we need to respond to.
Okay, Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. How would this play into effect, I guess, your staffing and your priorities for calls if the noise ordinance is passed? I don't know if you're familiar with it, that basically prohibits any noise that is plainly audible in the daytime closer than 100 feet, so 33 yards, about the length from that wall to this wall in the daytime. But at nighttime, 10 yards or 30 feet, which is like from me to you, just about, first down on a football field. Or if it's a multi-unit building, like all our apartment complexes, if a person can hear it from the next apartment over for more than 15 minutes, how would that stress your officers? And do your officers want to respond to that? And do you think it is a good use of resources for your officers and these new overtime officers during the summer when parties happen to respond to that?
So what I can say about this grant is it's primarily designated for crime trends. And so we're looking at data where we're looking at type 1 crimes, serious crimes, firearm crimes, robberies, larcenies, sexual assaults, car larcenies. That's really where this overtime money and the officers that are dedicated to this effort are going to be deployed. The second part of this is through the engagement. So when you saw some of our LPD engagement efforts that was happening at pop-up events at parks, or when you see our officers that are going to be engaging people down on the Riverwalk, that's where these officers are going to be allocated to, through this grant specifically.
So just to understand that, so let's say the grant gets passed, I'm sure it will, I'll be supporting it, and you have these designated officers on duty. If there's a call for a noise violation, maybe the neighbor next door is hearing the music too loud, so are you saying those officers wouldn't respond to that?
The idea behind this program is that those calls, noise complaints, would be handled by our assigned district officers.
So when there's saturation or there's nothing going on the river trail and there's no, crimes going on that's being discussed, what will those officers do?
When you say what would those officers do, you're talking about the officers for the grant. So the grant is awarded for violent crime reduction. And so when I talk about the type 1 crimes that we're addressing, those are the type of crimes that this grant is specifically targeting. And they understand the community policing portion of it about building trust, engaging our citizens, especially in specific areas, potentially areas where we're having these patterns at over different times. So we're engaging the neighborhood, speaking to them about the problems, and then giving them information on what we're doing and how they can help.
Do you think that arresting somebody for a noise violation would build trust or hurt trust when the officer comes to that apartment or that place? And I mean, by law, could, I would say in their discretion, but could arrest them?
I think when we talk about what does arrest do in terms of building public trust, we always look at the idea of education is our first effort. And a lot of times education talks about informing people of what our ordinances are and what our laws are. And so we're giving people the idea that once they know what the laws and the ordinances are, they have to have ample time to put this into place. At the same time, when we don't follow up with any enforcement multiple times from our citizens, we lose trust that way too. Because when they keep calling the police department and they identify an issue, and we've identified that this is a violation, they want to see some type of enforcement and follow-up. You mentioned arrest. It's not always arrest. Sometimes it's a citation. There's some type of official police response that people are looking for, and I do believe that trust can be built both ways.
Probably my last question. So you said that there's an informative session where you tell people what the law is. Are you aware that many people who for example, buy a gun, register it, carry it in their car that they don't know, and put in their glove compartment that they don't know it's against the law to do that and they have to have it a certain way, they don't know it's a law. Would you give them a warning and inform them, or would you arrest them?
Can you explain that? It's illegal to carry a firearm in your vehicle?
Yes. Would you explain to somebody who, let's say I, or not me, anybody, Joe Schmo, they're not a felon, they purchase their weapon, they register their weapon, and then they put it in their glove compartment, which is illegal. It's carrying a concealed weapon in a vehicle. You can't carry it that way. But they don't know that you can't carry it that way. They don't know that you have to have it in a lockbox, in the trunk, furthest away from people, in a box, a gun box made for guns. They don't know that the CCW law, carrying a concealed weapon law. How would you, I guess, how would you treat that if, and educate them about the law or otherwise?
You're describing a situation where someone's carrying a concealed weapon, which is a felony. And when we're talking about someone who's committing a felony versus someone who's committed a misdemeanor or potentially even a civil infraction, there is a different approach to that. Sometimes an education isn't the first step when it's a serious offense. And when you mention a felony and when you mention a firearm, I would classify that as a serious offense. So a warning and the education part isn't necessarily the right thing to do in situations like that.
Do you think that
Councilmember Jackson, I think we're getting off the topic of this grant. We certainly can bring the chief back at a later time to discuss, I think, these issues further. And I think it probably would be a discussion where we would invite the prosecutor as well, who has a hand in this. But if we can stay on topic on this specific grant.
Thank you. Well, I think I don't want the chief to stay too long because I know he's probably going to leave after this. But I think I would have questions for the chief about the noise ordinance that will be a misdemeanor, not a civil infraction, and then just your thoughts on it and how that would work. But thank you,
Chief. When we get to that item, if you would stick around for a minute and discuss your thoughts, we'd appreciate it. Oh,
I can stay. I can tell you I'm not prepared to speak on the specifics of the noise ordinance right now. It wasn't something I came prepared to.
That's on council, so.
Okay.
And I think you've covered a lot of it in what we discussed, the questions. So do we have any further questions for the chief? Seeing none, I want to thank you for being here. And then if there's no further questions, all those in favor say aye.
I made a motion.
Oh, I thought you made a motion.
No. I will make the motion for the resolution of the grant acceptance. COPS Michael Grant Safer Lansing from the Department of Justice Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services.
Okay, now we have a proper motion. My apologies. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Chief, for being here. Next, we are going to move on to item E, amending Chapter 812, Section 812.01 to modify the principal shopping district boundaries. I'm going to turn it over to the city attorney first for a brief correction.
Thank you. This was brought to my attention by Clerk Swope, so credit and thank you to him. Just real fast, when I was drafting, I was very focused on the modifications in the current ordinance related to the main Old Town section or district of the principal shop, or Old Town zone of the principal shopping district, and I was a little too zealous in correcting Zone C. So on page 5, starting at line 22, which is the last line of page 5, it's all struck through, but beginning with the words "to the west right-of-way line of North Larch Street," that through the remainder of that strike through should be not struck through. Otherwise, the box doesn't close. And so I'm raising that to the council's attention if there's a desire to take that up as an amendment, I would appreciate it, so that at least geometry works for this one.
Okay. All right, so Vice President Carter?
Yes, I will make a motion for the amendment of the ordinance amending Chapter 812, Section 812.01 to modify principal shopping district boundaries with those amendments on page 5 and 6.
Okay, so do we have any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Passes unanimously. All right.
Thank you.
Next, we are on to item F, the amended Chapter 1460, the tenant relocation fee exception for the tenant caused damage. Do we have any discussion on this item? This is adding to the tenant relocation fee ordinance. I think we had discussed this when we passed this, adding this later to include if a tenant makes or does the damage. Councilmember Spatafor.
Sure, thank you. Appreciate this amendment. There was some public comment around sort of the burden of proof, and I think it's really important to note that in this, the city attorney has a lot of latitude to evaluate the evidence and make sure that there is an actual tenant-caused issue, not just a landlord throwing up objection because they don't want to pay the fee. So that was a valid concern I heard at public comment. Wanted to make sure that was addressed here on the table, that we are putting a lot of burden of proof on the landlord to make that case, so.
Correct, yes. We wanted to make sure that we continued to hold the spirit of the actual ordinance that we passed. And I think that the city attorney did a good job. Councilmember?
So, yeah, and so I appreciate that. So point of clarification, in terms of the actual exemption request, that will be filed with the city attorney's office? Is it?
No, I think it would go to code compliance
That's what I
first.
thought. So
Yep.
is it that they would make a determination and then you would review the determination? Are you guys doing that jointly? What does that look
Together.
like?
The idea is to do it together, because the reality is, if we were going to be going to collect one of these, we'd be going to court anyway, and we'd be working with them in order to do that. And so the question is, essentially, if the landlord can provide evidence that an attorney in my office and the code officer that would be the witness that would be in the court proceeding can look at this and say, oh gosh, we can't possibly demonstrate that we should obviously get this money back, then we can make the determination at that point to say, fine, they've demonstrated it's tenant-caused damage, we shouldn't be pursuing this.
And I guess, just curiosity, in terms of satisfactory documentation, I mean, what would that look like? Is that photos, inspection reports? I mean, what is
It's going to be fact-specific every single time.
Right.
But I think the language that we had in here is clear and convincing, which is one of the highest civil standards that we have. Most civil standards in court are preponderance of the evidence, which is literally 50% plus anything.
Right.
Clear and convincing is, it's going to be, I will just tell you, I don't mind saying, if I were the one reviewing it, I would need to have more than just some written statement describing a series of events that took place. I would want to see things that would be good for a landlord to include, would be photographs of the damage, photographs recent of not the damage, showing that it is new damage, any work orders that were done to correct something previously, for example, and then any work orders demonstrating that something had to be done subsequent to demonstrate, again, that this is new damage and that it is not attributed to either the negligence of the landlord or the actions of the landlord, that it is actually attributed to the tenant. That's the kind of stuff that we're going to see, but certainly documents, photographs will be on the order of good evidence for something like this.
And I guess my last comment, I don't think this needs to necessarily be written into the ordinance, but I would love to see future leadership, along with office staff, work to almost get an annual report, right, on this aspect of the ordinance. And I just wrote a couple things down. Number of relocation events, number of exemption requests, approval denial rates, common reasons for approval. Just always concerned that something like this might not be, enforced with fidelity. So we'd really like to look at this maybe on an annual basis to ensure that this is actually serving the purposes intended. Thank you.
Sure.
And I think, the city attorney and I have had conversations as well about this, that even though the burden, if the tenant were to cause the damage, the burden wouldn't fall on the landlord. That does not mean that that person would be out on the street.
Correct.
We would still provide shelter it would be at the city cost rather than the landlord cost.
Correct, because the determination at the time of the event, when the person would, be placed into some kind of alternate housing, that's going to be made before any proof is brought to the city, one way or the other. And I will also add that, and I hear you very clearly, Councilmember Hussein. I think it's the hope, and it was certainly the design by President Cost and our efforts in drafting, that the setup for this is that we don't have to implement it very much because it encourages the right kind of behavior. And I think that's some of the feedback that we've ended up hearing from a lot of the landlords, which is positive. The other thing that I'll say is if the list of questions, I started writing them down, but if you've got them, email them to me, please, because if that's the thing that we can keep track of, absolutely. If I know now the kind of stuff that you want kept track, that's going to be much easier to provide a report. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any further discussion? Okay, Vice President Carter?
All right, I will make a motion for the ordinance to amend Chapter 1460 tenant relocation fee exception for tenant-caused damage.
Okay, we have a proper motion in place. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Passes unanimously. Next, we are on to a resolution, a nonprofit recognition for Stoop Fest, Inc. Is Jacob Niven here? Hi. If you want to come on down here to the well. Great. If you'd like to introduce yourselves and just tell us a little bit about what the Stoop Fest is and why you're seeking the nonprofit recognition, and make sure your green light's on, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much. My name is Jacob Nevin, and this is Kevin Cordes. We're both organizers for Stoop Fest, and it's a nonprofit music festival that's operated in Lansing for some time, but only as recently as 2022 did we incorporate and seek nonprofit status. And as an organization, we seek to put on the best music festival that we can, that we highlight the talent in our community and encourage people outside of our community to come here to perform as well. And we take great pride in paying our artists as well as we can, and that's a pretty high level. Anything you want to add, Kevin?
No, I think that's about it.
All right.
Okay. And I live on the east side, so I'm very familiar with the Stoop Fest. It's wonderful to hear every year. Do we have any questions for these two? Okay, I don't see any questions. I'll thank you both for coming down, and then Vice President Carter.
Yes, I will make a motion for the resolution of the nonprofit recognition for Stoop Fest, Inc.
Okay, proper motion in place. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you both for coming.
Thank you.
Have a good night. All right, next we're going to move on to item H, a resolution for the Parks and Recreation Master Plan 2026 through 2030. And we have the Parks Director here as well, if anybody has questions for him. It looks like we don't have any takers on questions, so I'll move to you, Vice President Carter.
All right, I will make a motion for the resolution of Parks and Recreation Master Plan for 2026 through 2030.
Okay, proper motion in place. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Passes unanimously. With that being the last bit of business, we are adjourned at 6:14.